Welcome to Talk to Me. I'm your host, Brenda Warren, the Soulutionist, and I am thrilled today to have a very special guest. Did you know that 65% of couples complain about communication and 43% just will not even talk about it? I was surprised to find that out when I read a recent article that said that 18% of couples are totally unsatisfied during the pandemic about their communication. But my guest today, Dr. Sarah Rattray, has the ability to help people rekindle their relationships, upgrade their communication, and she knows that change is possible because she's made that change possible for people for over 30 years. I'm excited to say that Dr. Rattray is a leading couple psychologist and the founder and CEO of the Couples Communication Institute. She has been working with couples in Seattle for over 30 years. She specializes in teaching loving, effective, connected communication. Dr. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brenda. It's great to be here with you today.
You know, I was excited to talk to you because when I told my friends you were coming, all of them were like, we're going to tune in for this one because isolation frustration has caused so many challenges for couples as they try to find ways to communicate effectively. And I know that's your specialty. And as we talk about that today, I'd like you to start with what made you want to specialize in couples communication?
Well, I would say it started probably before I went to college. But when I went to college, I took a freshman psychology class. It was super popular on campus. And then I just kept taking psychology classes. And what interested me the most was what makes people like each other? What makes people get along with each other? My parents were always fighting with each other, always criticizing. And I think I felt like I was at a loss. I literally didn't know how people got along. And so I was just so eager to learn about that. And the other thing I learned about in college that really shaped my thinking, I'm sure you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you need to have your basic needs met so you can kind of move up the pyramid to the very top where it's self-actualization. And I've kind of put these two together, working with couples and sort of what I think of as couple actualization. Can you really connect with your partner so well that the two of you are leading your best lives together? You're the best couple you can be, and you're the best people you can be.
When couples come to see you, do they have to be married to see you, or can it be just couples in need of assistance, whether they're married or not?
Well, absolutely, they don't have to be married. So I see romantically involved couples, whether they're dating or broken up, or they're thinking about getting married or any point along the way. I also have worked with just 2 or 3 or 4 adult people. So for example, I've also worked with adult families, let's say parents and 1 or 2 adult children, to help them communicate better. But basically, my main target is any kind of couple.
So when you work with a couple, is there a certain point that they should say, we really need to go see Dr. Sarah? Is it like when they're throwing toasters at each other's heads, or is it when they just feel like maybe we're just not connecting?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple different answers to that, Brenda. What I have been doing for my whole career, 30 years, is couples therapy. And as a couples therapist, it's my strong belief that it's never too early to go to couples therapy, because I think the best gift that you can give each other is knowing how to communicate, knowing how to let each other know what your needs are, how to have calm and safe conversations, how to talk about, areas where you disagree. So I think, couples who want to come in the beginning, like, we're doing okay, but we really want a toolbox, a skill set for life. That's awesome. Now what I'm shifting to, Brenda, is I'm creating online courses and programs that are not therapy for couples. And now my view is it's ideal to do any kind of couples work, any kind of communication work, whether it's with the help of a therapist, one-to-one, I was going to say in person, but not these days, or with a course or a program or something like that you just do with your partner, because you really want these skills. I mean, you tell me, Brenda, how many of us really have a great model of communication while we're growing up? In my experience, most people do. Yeah, you're shaking your head. No. So, but beyond that, if you're trying to get along with your partner and you can't, don't keep struggling. Don't put it off. A statistic that John Gottman always quotes is it takes an average of about 6 or 7 years after a couple knows they need therapy for them to actually show up in the therapist's office.
Wow.
Those are 6 or 7 wasted, painful years. And I think therapy is kind of like the shortest distance between 2 points. I want to get closer to my partner again. I want to be able to talk and get close and comfortable. Let's just go. Talk to a professional and get back on the same page together.
So, Dr. Sarah, say there's a couple. They're newly seeing each other, and they still have stars in their eyes, and they're saying, "We feel like we communicate okay, but we're thinking about doing this for the long haul." Could they come see you?
Yes, that's like my favorite. My favorite is the kind of couple who's like, we want to crush this relationship thing. We want to be the kind of couple that people look at us, in our community, and they're like, wow, those guys are awesome. Like, that's my favorite.
Now, oftentimes, I'm sure a lot of people don't do that, but as someone that is currently going through a divorce and thinking that if I ever do this again, I want to get it right. So is there an opportunity for someone like me that maybe it's not even a couple yet, but I'm saying I want to know how to communicate better so that when I do enter a relationship, that I'm playing fair, I'm speaking with love, and I'm communicating effectively? Is there an opportunity for me to get help?
What a great question, Brenda. Absolutely. The first course that I'm offering, my online course, is a general course in communication. And I'm speaking as if it's to a couple, but any one person can do that, whether they're single or whether they're in a relationship who just want to do it themselves. There are so many principles and ideas that you can learn to be the leader between yourself and any other person in setting up safe communication. And that's the thing, whether you're headed into another romantic relationship or you just want to have a great conversation with your family member or another loved one or a friend or a colleague, you can always learn, ways to talk to each other so you help each other feel safe. One of the things, I'm sure you've found this in your life, there are conversations where it starts off on the wrong foot. Like before 3 words are out of the first person's mouth, it's right? Right? Because we need to learn how to even bring up conversations in a way that feels safe and not threatening. So yeah, specifically to answer your question, Brenda, absolutely, there's so much you can learn on your own.
And to that point of being non-threatening, what if, say, for example, I do come to you and now I'm really excited because I've gotten all the information I need and I feel like I'm an effective communicator and I finally meet the man of my dreams, but he is not into counseling. Is there a way to in a non-threatening way, explain to him that a course that you have available or even going with me to see someone like you would be beneficial?
Yeah. So lots of times when we are thinking about the conversation we want to have, we're thinking about the big, meaty, juicy conversation. But I think there are a lot of conversations you need to have before you get to the meaty, juicy conversation. Like, this is a silly example, but Brenda, when you and I were setting up this interview for today, first we had to look at our calendars and pick a date that worked best for us. You had to ask me, what kind of equipment did I have? We're not having the big, meaty, juicy conversation yet. First, you're saying, like, do we have a time that works for both of us?
Are we compatible?
Yes. And do we want, and Brenda, this is something that you and I did. We talked about, what do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the same thing? So when you're saying, are we compatible? Were we ready to have the same kind of conversation? So let's say you meet a man and you want to say to him, will you go to counseling with me? No, don't start with that question. You want to start earlier. I don't mean earlier, but can't think of the word. More, you want to, let's just say, in the beginning, you want to start with things like, how do you feel about communication in a relationship? Or what are your values about communication in a relationship? Or what are your values or beliefs about getting help for things? Not even therapy, but like, you might ask your new partner, do you ever work with a mentor? Like, when you're doing your hobby or your sport, have you ever worked with a coach? Have you ever studied under, when you're an apprentice, or whoever it is you study under, that type of thing. Like, when you went to school, did you have a teacher you'd go to after class for
a mentor, someone that
and so you have conversations like, what is your belief and opinion and value about mentoring? So coming at it in all sorts of ways. If you are getting involved with a person who's like, I only do things on my own, I've never gotten help from anyone, no one can tell me what to do. In my book, that's a red flag.
Red flag.
We said it at the same time, Brenda.
Red flag.
Right? But if he's like, oh yeah, when I was learning how to play, I don't know, softball, when I was learning to play baseball, yeah, I had this great coach and I could never have gotten as far on my own without him. Good sign. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with, if you're talking about communication, you can also, this is a really important tip, Brenda. You can say something like, especially in the beginning, wow, I felt so close with you last night when we were having that conversation. You and I just talked and talked, and it felt so good. Do you like, talks like that? Something like that, where you're setting up the habit or the routine or the precedent of talking about talking, complimenting each other. When you point out the good things, wow, I loved that talk we just had. I hope we have more kinds of talks like that as our relationship goes on. That's really setting the stage for positivity and inviting in what you want between the two of you.
So then it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that even couples that are dating could use your services.
I mean, I would think it was weird if you were dating for a month and you came in. I'd be like, that's pretty fast. But, to take a course together, sure. I mean, and I'm being a little judgmental. I can't imagine maybe at a month you would want to, but yes, I have seen, in 30 years, I've seen many, many couples who've been dating and came in either because they were having a really big problem or they just really wanted to do it right.
And I guess maybe I'm at 58 years old, I don't think I need to date for 20 years with somebody, but I'm thinking that I could save myself a lot of time by doing a course early to find out if they are a communicator, because I don't have a lot of years to waste. So I'm just thinking, if you have online courses that allow for that, that would be something I could see in advance to say, hey, this is something that if you are not willing to have open, honest communication, I can go, thank you, next.
Well, there's two parts to that. Yes, you want open, honest communication, but my definition of open and honest does not mean abusive.
Absolutely
So,
not.
for example, it's not open and honest communication if I say to you, Brenda, I hate that. I think that's a butterfly. I hate that butterfly on your shirt. No, that's just nasty. That's just
Mhm,
mean. There's
mhm,
no place for that.
mhm,
And you don't get to say it, well, it's the truth. No,
mhm.
it's mean. If I don't personally care for that butterfly, I might say, like, if you ask me about it, I might say, well, butterflies are not my favorite
Yeah,
insect.
yeah,
That's fine.
right.
So yeah, you want open, curious, honest, but kind and respectful communication. And when you have a red flag, you better pay attention to that red flag. Don't ever brush red flags under the carpet and ignore them. Um,
Oh, I don't anymore, but I know that that's something in the past I had struggled with, where I didn't always um, have clear boundaries on proper communication. I'm
yeah,
clear on them now, but I
good
wasn't
for
in the
you.
past. So, Dr. Sarah, is there just a specific time when you would say a couple should come in and see you? Is there, like, in your experience, like at the 1 year mark, the 2 year mark, or even 25-year mark, where they just come in for maybe a tune up?
Well, there certainly are critical transition points in a relationship. So, if you're starting to talk about marriage,
Mhm.
um, and I'm saying marriage because if you're planning to have a wedding, the planning of a wedding is so
Mm.
horrifically stressful.
Mhm.
Like, it's common lore, I think, because it's the truth that getting ready to have a wedding is just so stressful.
Mhm.
So that's a point I would say if you're planning a wedding, if you're planning to get married with a wedding,
Mhm.
that's a very good time. Another point is, perhaps moving in together or going through that commitment time. Things really truly shift between a couple when they're committed. There's a kind of a shift into a relaxation that sometimes results in distance and disconnection. Like, I don't have to try anymore. We're settled. And
Mhm.
there's this, things change. So that's a
Things
good
change.
time. Another very critical time is for people who are becoming parents or
Parents.
just
I was
became
just
parents.
thinking that.
Oh my God, so hard. Just every bit of it is so hard. And your children deserve to have parents who can communicate well with each other. It's a gift to your children. And, everyone who has a child, their world changes and they want the best for their child. That means putting your relationship first in the way, in what I mean by putting a relationship first, investing the time and attention and care in that co-parenting couple relationship so you can raise children who know what a strong, healthy relationship is like. That's a gift. That's a gift. Another, and I'm just talking about
Life steps. Right.
life.
Life events.
Thanks, Brenda. I don't know where my words are today. Um,
What about an
children,
illness?
yes.
A terminal illness, or just a serious illness can change the dynamics of a couple. I was thinking finances, changes in careers, a big upcoming move. There's so
Well,
many
you know what
things.
you're doing right now, Brenda, actually is you're actually practically reading off the list of stressful life events. And
Mhm.
every single one that you just mentioned, those are high point items that are stressful life events. So any big transition, like you said, somebody in the family gets sick, there's a change in your employment status, there's you having to move. All of those things are stressful. And let's come back to that in a minute about ways to talk about it. But I want to
Okay.
just bring up a couple other stages, like stages. Um, as you're approaching your empty nest, or if you
Mm.
never had children, just simply approaching retirement, that's a very challenging time. And one of the groups of people that I really am motivated to help is disconnected couples approaching their empty nest, because, we're so used to parenting, what am I talking to you about? When are you picking up our son? Who's going with the daughter? That's what we've talked about for 18 years. Now we look at each other. Do I know you? Who are you? Am I ready to spend the rest of my life with just you? And then retirement. And, similarly to what you were saying about illness, as we're older and our health is changing, one or both of us is getting more frail, it's another time. And I have worked with couples as old as their 80s. I don't recall anybody in their 90s, but I've worked with couples up to their 80s. And there's always things to learn and always things to talk about.
So as couples come to you, is there any subject that's off limits, or is it just any subject that a couple feels they need to communicate better and you can help them with that?
Well, in my practice, it's what do I feel qualified to work on. So for example, I personally am not a substance abuse expert. So if one or both of the people have a substance abuse problem actively, as well as their communication issues, I'm going to refer you to somebody else.
Okay.
And that's important for whoever you want to go see. And I actually, my practice is closed at the moment, but for all of your listeners, if you have a unique thing that you want your therapist to be well versed in, absolutely bring that up and ask about that right at the outset. So again, me as an example, I'm not good with substance abuse, and I would only do a disservice to a couple coming to see me without that skill set. Like, I'm not the best person to help you. So be sure that you know what you want to, be talking about and working on.
So when you go to see a couples therapist, you need to be clear on what you need and make sure that the person that you go see is qualified to help you in that area. So I guess you have to vet them just because they say they're couples therapists. Because I think a lot of people don't do that. We think if we see a doctor in front of someone's name, or we see the title therapist or psychologist, we just make the assumption that they can do it all. And I guess you're saying we need to be clear on what our intentions are and what we're trying to get, so that we can get the right person to help us with our communication.
Yeah. So for the last 20 years, starting more than, you have to update your years. If you're used to saying for 20 years, now I think it's 22. But about 22 years ago, I started working with John Gottman. I mentioned his name earlier. He is, I think, the foremost marriage researcher in the world, maybe in the United States, maybe in the world. And the Gottman Institute has a referral network of therapists who have been certified in the Gottman method. And so that's always my first go-to. Is I encourage people to find a Gottman therapist in their neighborhood. There are other schools of therapy that are super helpful. Susan Johnson's emotionally focused therapy is really awesome. For people who aren't sure, maybe they want to split up or stay together. There's something called discernment counseling, started by Bill Doherty. So those are some of the biggest kind of names of groups of therapists who are very well trained. Other than that, I think a great referral is someone else who has a great therapist. And I don't think there should be any stigma about talking about therapy, but some people are reluctant. But, if you have a girlfriend or a sister or someone in your church who went to counseling, ask them, was your therapist helpful? Where I come from, I really like to give people practical, helpful tips and steps and strategies that they can do differently at home. I don't want to spend a ton of time digging into your childhoods or your pasts. Like a little bit is very, very illuminating. So you want to think about, what is best for the two of you.
Well, Dr. Sarah, if you had like one tip for couples right now that may find themselves struggling because of the pandemic and now they realize they're not communicating well, is there one thing they can do right now to just get connected?
Well, I think I'm going to tell you two things.
Okay.
So the first thing, one of the sad, kind of unfortunate gifts that this pandemic has given us is the realization that any of us could die in a moment's notice. I mean, we've always known that. We've always known that. But seeing our friends and neighbors literally die, and they died alone, one of the things it's given us is the opportunity to really focus in and look at our partner and think about, if we only had 6 months left together, how would we want to treat each other?
Yes.
How would I want to treat this partner I've been with? How would I want my partner to treat me? And to really, really take some time to focus in on that thought. I do love you. There is a reason that we've been together. And how do I want to talk to you? How do I want to treat you? What kind of time do I want to spend with you? Brenda, you and I are busy professionals, and we know what it's like to not have enough time for the people in our lives. When we can take this opportunity to say, I'm going to put aside my work for the evening. I'm going to turn off my screens, and I'm going to sit down with my partner and just be interested and curious. So that's the first tip, is to really take time to think about, how would you like to treat this cherished person if you knew you only had a few months left together? And then another really quick tip, it's a teeny tiny tip out of my course that has a lot of tips. When you want to talk to your partner, think it through before you get started talking. Like, kind of get your thoughts in order. What is it that I want to talk about? And then here is a simple but powerful tip. Don't call to them from the next room. Don't just kind of walk in and start talking. Go find your partner. Go to the room where they are. Look at them. And, if you're my partner, I'm going to say, hey, Brenda. And I'm going to wait. And I'm going to see, do you look up at me and say, yes, Sarah? Or are you in the middle of doing something? If you're typing away, or you're, doing a podcast, I'm not going to say anything. So I'm going to say, hey, Brenda. And if you say to me, yes, Sarah, then I'm going to say, do you have a second? And that's your opportunity to either say, yeah, sure. Or your opportunity to say, I would love to talk to you, Sarah, but right now I'm finishing up this thing before my podcast. Can we talk in about an hour?
Yeah.
So that's in the beginning of our conversation today, Brenda. I was sharing how you can be the leader in setting things up to feel safe between the two of you. And that's one little piece of setting things up safely.
Wow. I'll remember that this evening when I'm talking to Alex. Dr. Sarah, with all the things that you do and all the couples that you've been able to help, how has this helped you live your best life?
It's helped me to think about, as I was mentioning just a moment ago, what am I investing in with my time? And am I investing in the things that really matter? And, if someone in my family wants to speak to me, can I pull myself back away from what I thought was so important, getting this piece of work done, or getting this laundry in the machine? And can I say, you are my favorite you, or whatever, you are my favorite son, Alex. Yes, share with me, what is it? Help the people in my life feel cherished. That's one of the biggest, I think, pieces of awareness that I've kept with me as a result of what I do.
Dr. Sarah, thank you for being here on Talk to Me today. And I've really enjoyed our talk. I've gotten a lot to think about, and I feel like I've gotten some useful tips to help me be a better communicator. I'd like to ask that you stand by with me now while I thank a veteran. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're used to watching this show, you know this is the point where I stop to say, hey, could you thank a veteran? It won't cost you a dime. All you have to do is go to the address above me here to www.nevcc.org/projects. And in one of the months listed, there are 12 of them, write a thank you to a veteran. There are writing prompts that'll get you started, a fresh start, spring has sprung, etc. You can write in one of the months, or you can write in all 12 of the months. And what's going to happen with your thank you is that at the end of the year, Lisa Ducharme, the executive director of the New England Veterans Chamber of Commerce, is going to compile all those along with her staff. They're going to create a book, and some veteran is going to be the recipient of that book along with a bunch of great goodies in a gift basket on January 1st, 2022. Remember, there's a veteran, there's a soldier, there's an airman, there's a Marine, there's a Coast Guard, even a Space Force, standing on the wall somewhere so that we can have our way of life that we enjoy on a daily basis. So take the time to thank a veteran and show them your appreciation. Dr. Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to say before we close today?
Well, I would say that it has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, Brenda. I love your depth and breadth of curiosity. Curiosity is a great trait in a communicator. And other than that, if people are interested in learning more, you know what? I actually have a communication quiz on my website, and that is geared for people in a relationship because it's asking about your communication with another person. And actually, when you take that quiz, then you get a free gift. You get a beautiful 8-page little mini ebook with the tips that I shared today and so many more.
And
so
where do they find that quiz?
That's at couplescommunicationinstitute.com.
Okay, we'll be sure to put all that in the description. And Dr. Sarah, please forgive me for failing to ask how do people contact you. So is that the main way someone could contact you or get in touch with you or have access to your courses?
Yeah, couplescommunicationinstitute.com. That's my website. And I am on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and I guess I'm on Twitter, but not really. And the names are all Dr. Sarah Rattray on all of those platforms.
We'll make sure that I put that in the description so that everyone will have access to that information. I am, again, apologize that I failed to ask you that because we want to make sure that people can reach out because there are couples out there that need to rekindle their relationship, that need to understand that change is possible. Absolutely. And find their way back to each other in a loving way that allows them to connect on a level that they can be happy to say that they communicate with ease.
I love it. I love it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of Talk to Me. Remember, the choices you make today will be the reality you live tomorrow. Choose wisely. Be blessed, everyone. And remember, communicate lovingly and effectively. And if you can't do it, then reach out to Dr. Sarah because she'll show you how. Be blessed, everyone. Mm-hmm.